Today, we dive further into the Flames' strengths, weaknesses, and where they can pick up the slack and really move things along.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, I thought that we could continue to dissect the strengths and weaknesses of the Calgary Flames and how they can build on those strengths and get stronger with their weaknesses. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. Let's dive into this because I think it is very easy to focus on the negatives when you're looking at this organization, right? You've missed the playoffs for 3 straight years. Meanwhile, Matthew Tkachuk has made 3 straight Stanley Cup final appearances, and you weren't able to get that elite scoring or elite player you thought you were getting with Jonathan Huberdeau. You've had a lot of key pieces of the team leave, and you're starting over from, I don't want to say scratch because that's not where the Flames are by any means, but there were pieces that had to be replaced that are not necessarily the same quality of what was there before them or what was, I guess what was before them. But let's talk about the positives, because while good pieces have left, they've also done a really good job of adding good pieces. Obviously, integrating Dustin Wolf into the NHL organization has been great for them. Connor Zary has been great. You're hoping that he has a good summer and is healthy and ready for you to come back for camp, and you hope that he has a little bit better luck this year in regards to injuries. You have Zane Parekh, you have Hunter Brustewicz, you have Suniev, Matt Coronato. Like, there are a lot of good pieces waiting on the wings and that are being integrated into the organization. And I think that it has been a lot of fun watching, Coronato just almost hit 25 goals in his first full NHL season. Watching Dustin Wolf be nominated and as a Calder finalist, like, while the Flames didn't make the playoffs, there were still high points of the season. And I think a lot of the positivity and I don't want to say good vibes, because that does feel kind of like passive aggressive and like not real. But the determination from this group, I think, the Flames have a very solid group of veterans on this team. They have Rasmus Andersson, they have Mackenzie Weegar, Michael Backlund, Blake Coleman, Kadri, Huberdeau. Like, there are a number of players that lead this room, and it's not just the guy that wears the C. And I think we've seen Mackenzie Weegar really step up and take accountability for things, as well as give respect and props where they're due. It's not about, being the only player that gets the credit and taking credit for his own things. It's a matter of distributing that. And I think while the Flames are not a playoff team this year, they're still building a strong environment. You have to have chemistry off ice as well as on ice if you want to win anything. And I think, you have to continue to build what's on the ice. But right now, off the ice, it seems like everyone is happy, and you want to continue to let that happen. You don't want disgruntled players in your room. You saw what happened when the Flames had a few of those. And really, I think what's helping make Calgary a more attractive place is going to be the opening of Scotia Place. I think that the new arena and facilities are going to do wonders for the team, in terms of the quality of like quality of life in your conditions. A lot of upgrades are going to be made, and not only does that bode well for your current players who get that much deserved upgrade, you're also becoming a more attractive team, um, that has access to state of the art equipment, technology, food, all these nutritionists, or like just, these really big things that go into making an athlete. And I think with the opening of that venue in the new facilities, you have hope of being a better hockey team, or being in a better position in terms of strength and skill and, you know, being a contender, I guess, is that's what I'm trying to get at, because there there's a foundation there. There absolutely is a foundation. However, you have to continue building. You can't just build a house with no foundation, and you can't just have a foundation and call it a house. There are multiple years of work that need to be done for this team, and that's not a negative thing. It's the truth, because just like Rome wasn't built in a day, you can't rebuild a team in 2 off seasons. It's not realistic, and I think continuing down the path of what they're on is good, but at the same time, there has to be some strengthening of these weaknesses that we're going to talk about next here on Locked On Flames, because unfortunately, if you have too many leaky holes, you're not going to go anywhere. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is super easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO that gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Monarch Money makes it super easy to collaborate, and managing your money with your partner has never been easier. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following this show wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And I know people don't like talking about rebuilding, because it stirs up a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings, because the Flames don't need to rebuild. They're a good team that can almost make the playoffs. Or you're so gung-ho on the rebuild that you're not able to enjoy the hockey in front of you. And whatever side you're on, I respect that. I understand and see both sides. However, I do think the Flames need to really fully commit to a rebuild. I think that they have done some good, they it started with trading away everyone 2 seasons ago, and that was a good start. You didn't sign any long-term deals in free agency. Fantastic. That's the way you wanted it. And you hit the draft out of the park. But how do you become a younger and better group when you have a quarter of your lineup as veterans. And not just veterans, but players that you could get a haul for. I know what you're saying. All right, you're tuning me out now because I'm talking about trading players like Blake Coleman or like Rasmus Andersson. I'm sorry, but while San Jose is still crawling their way back up after 5 years of rebuilding, they have garnered so much generational, I don't want to say so much generational talent, but a lot of, Macklin Celebrini is one of a kind. Their William Eklund is fantastic. They have Askarov, who is their Dustin Wolf. There are a lot of pieces to the Sharks, Will Smith, that have shown promise for their future. And I think you have to remember that they traded away a lot of guys, or, Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson. I can't remember if Joe Pavelski left in free agency or if he was traded, but regardless, like, that hit number one, like, their guy. And I think it's hard because you obviously have that sentimental and emotional value, memories attached to these players. 100%. That's why I'm sickened when, when Brad Marchand was traded. I was sickened. Horrible. Absolutely. And I get it, because if you trade away a guy like Blake Coleman or, Rasmus Andersson, you think of all the years of hard work and dedication that they put towards this team. And it's not for nothing. It's not. Because these guys always talk about how they know it's a business. So if you are traded, and maybe it puts you in a better position, and Andersson going to the Stars would do great things for them. Honestly, would do great things for the Stars and be a boost to their defense that they were desperately looking for this playoff season. Or, Blake Coleman, if he goes to a team that, I don't know what any of these cap spaces look like. I'm just throwing it out there. But, like, if Coleman were to go to Seattle, he would be a great fit there. He would be a veteran presence, but still someone that contributes. A great depth scorer would be Igor Sharangovich, or, Martin Pospisil would be a great third, fourth liner for some of these teams that need additional physicality through the season and into the playoffs. There are a lot of ways that the Flames can move players out and get great futures in return. Or if you're trading a roster player, let's just say you're trading Kadri for Marco Rossi, and you get, a first or a second round pick. That's a good investment. Kadri's great, but think of how much better a 23-year-old with a lot of time left can be. And when your organization is ready to compete. Because right now, they are consistently inconsistent. And I think that it's very hard, because with a rebuild, I see people saying, well, the argument is that, you want them to rebuild, but then you're mad at them for not losing. And it's just like, yes, but I think people's frustration with the Flames is that they went into this season being a bottom 5 team. And Conroy was committed to doing what he could to make this a better team. But the plot feels kind of lost with the addition of Joel Farabee at the moment. I feel like I'm not writing him off yet. I think it would be incredibly unfair to do that. But I think he has to get better and really prove why he's here and prove that $5 million contract. I think that overall, everyone on special teams needs to be better. You can't win anything without solid special teams. That is a given. And for the Flames, in order to get better, they have to take a step back. And we're going to talk more about that coming up next. But you have to, because otherwise your leaky defense is going to stay a leaky defense. The lack of elite talent, guess what? It's going to stay that way because you're just in the soggy middle. You did not draft Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, Sean Monahan by chance. You were able to land these types of players. And Zane Parekh, I mean, granted, he's not an established NHLer yet, but those are all top 10 picks. That's where you're going to find and more likely to have your draft pick stick. You know, getting Dustin Wolf in the 7th round is incredibly lucky. Johnny Gaudreau in the 4th round, incredibly lucky. There are ways that you can acquire elite talent, but when you're not necessarily a very attractive team for players to go to in free agency, and you're looking to hold on to draft capital versus trading for an elite player, obviously depending on who it is, you're going to have to go through the draft. So how the Flames decide to take these next steps is completely up to them. But I think that what they need to do is really focus on getting another top 10 pick. I think that is realistically where they need to be putting their focus, because you can have all the good vibes you want, but if those good vibes aren't translating to consistent scoring, consistent defense, 30 plus goal seasons for multiple people, like what are we doing? You need to score goals to win, and you need to be able to stop goals to win. Coming up next, we're going to talk about how the Flames can kind of pick up this slack and continue to move through the offseason with keeping their plan of a rebuild in mind. Thanks everyone for tuning in and making Locked On Flames part of your day. Make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at JustBelmosto. I think the Flames have to really consider taking a step, like a real step back. I know that going into last season, they talked about being okay with taking a step back, but they didn't. And that's good. I mean, it shows the capabilities of this team, but in a draft year that is very slim for centers, a top 10, top 5 pick would have done wonders. You know, you could have had that pick if it was, you didn't have to give it to Montreal because it was top 10 protected. So could have lucked out there. But you don't need to take a step back with the intentions of losing. Going out there and taking a step back means you're not going to swing big in free agency. You're not going to go out and try to trade for, you know, I'm trying to think like who might be out there right now that you're going to be okay with shopping your players, basically. You know, if teams call on Rasmus Andersson, you're going to take those calls and you're going to take them into consideration. And you're going to work on integrating these younger players into your lineup on a more consistent basis. You're going to allow your players to develop at the NHL level after graduating from the AHL. I think that the Flames need to consider exploring the center market. Brock Nelson just got $7.5 million for the next 3 years with Colorado. Teams are desperate for centers. And Nazem Kadri just had another 30-goal season. A contender would love to have him on their team. And if the price is right, I think the Flames should explore it. I don't think they need to explore every single option and start calling people, but I think that they need to keep that open mind, because those draft picks, the draft capital turns into something. And if you get you're obviously going to have to get a good roster player in return, or a high-end prospect in return. You're doing things to elevate your roster and your team's future. They need to stick with the plan. They have to stick with the plan of getting younger, getting faster, more skilled, more consistent scoring, and not messing around. Like, you don't need to trade for players that don't need to be here. I think that Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee are good additions. I do. I think that, replacing Andrei Kuzmenko is great. And I don't know if Jacob Pelletier was ever going to fully emerge in the Flames system. If he was given a true proper chance, maybe, but it is so hard to say. And, Morgan Frost is another young center that you're hoping bounces back this year. And same thing with Farabee. Now that, they're settled into the city, hopefully things go well. And you aren't looking to trade either of them again. Like, you don't want to do that. But at the same time, sometimes you're in the situation where, you have $30 million of cap space and you should weaponize that. Maybe you need to take on a cap dump for a team. Maybe you need to take on, the way Montreal did a few years ago with Sean Monahan. And that's how you acquire first-round picks. With the cap space going up, it does make it a little more difficult, but teams are going to get a lot more comfortable spending money over the next few seasons, and hopefully you can use that to your advantage, because the Flames really don't have a lot of players to re-sign right now that are necessarily going to gobble up that $30 million. So hopefully, you're still seeing off seasons with double digits in cap space. I think with the draft coming up, they should be looking to explore options for trades. I think they should try to potentially trade up in the draft if that option becomes available. I also think that they need to remember on July 1st, there is not a need to sign a 27 or 28-year-old to a 7-year deal. You don't have to do that. Your team is not in the position where adding a big name free agent is going to fix your problems. I think back to a few years ago when the Flames traded for Tyler Toffoli a month before the deadline. That was a strategic add ahead of the playoffs. And it was a good one. He was also, kind of a similar situation to where Blake Coleman is. Still has a few years left on his deal. You have to be willing to take risks, but strategic risks. Like, trading for Marco Rossi is probably a good idea. Maybe offer sheeting Mavrik Bourque. Maybe that's a good idea. I don't necessarily know if Matthew Knies is a player I'd offer sheet, because what is he capable of outside of playing with Austin Matthews? Jason Robertson would be a fantastic player for the Flames to target. But again, adding one player is not going to fix this roster. There are areas that need improvement. And so be it if the Flames take a step back this year and pick in the top 10 again. I think that that's fine. They need to find a way to find elite talent and hold on to it, because I'm not really sure you have anyone outside of Dustin Wolf right now that's elite. And you need elite scoring to win. Look at Draisaitl and McDavid. Look at Sam Bennett. Look at Matthew Tkachuk. Look at, really, it's not even just like the elite talent in Florida. It's the amount of depth scoring that they have and just the consistency to find the back of the net. But there are so many ways for the Flames to settle next season and coast. You don't have to play bad. Like, no one's telling you to go out there and throw these games. That's ridiculous. But should Craig Conroy decide not to make any trade deadline moves, and add players, I think that would be okay. I think that this year you're poised for a little bit of regression with Dustin Wolf. Goaltending is weird. Sophomore slump exists for a reason. And you're hoping you get a better defenseman out of Rasmus Andersson. And you're hoping that your third pairing straightens it up and hopefully could stop a beach ball. At the end of the day, the goal is to win a cup. And you have to do whatever it takes to win a cup, to construct a cup-winning team without bribing prospects and doing weird combine things. But without a doubt, the Flames have some room to grow, but they also have a lot of good strengths. So I'm hopeful that over the next season or two, we see them back in the playoffs that first year of Scotia Place. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. I hope you have a fantastic evening. I will be back tomorrow with some more Flames talk and hopefully some fun, crazy news, because there's really nothing going on outside of the Stanley Cup.